Oh, God. Hi, I'm ill, but it's time to do another Blurbal reasoning. I want to get this done while my thoughts are fresh, so apologies for the illness. I promise I can't infect you through the medium of YouTube video or audio. Now, as you may be able to tell, it's been quite some time since I did the previous Blurbal reasoning for the previous entry in the series, and that's purely because it took me a long time to read this book. It took me longer than average to read Lord of Chaos. And that's because I thought it waffled a bit. And this is before the famous kind of free books of waffling that I've heard about, so that's not good. But conversely, I also think this is a really good book, or at least it has really good moments, mostly really good moments, but also some waffling chapters. Who knows, maybe it's also just because I got distracted by other things. Who can really say? I'm certainly not a critic. I'm just here to tell you my thoughts on the book, because who am I but another reader of fantasy? Now, because it took me so long to get around to finishing this book, I may be missing some details from earlier parts of the book, so if that's the case, I do apologise profusely. Feel free to leave a comment telling me what I haven't talked about, and I will reply with my thoughts about that thing what I forgot to talk about. However, I am using kind of a synopsis to kind of remind myself about what happened earlier in the book, because I'm pretty sure it took me around 2 or 3 months to read this thing. So yeah, apologies if this one's a little bit shorter, but again, I'm ill, and it took me months to read the book. But I will say that some of my favourite things happened in the series in this book. For instance, Nynaeve, no longer a pain in the ass to read through. She actually did some really interesting and cool stuff this book, and my kind of pain in the ass meter is kind of dipping more towards Elaine and how snooty she is and how she wants to own Rand. Not a big fan of that dynamic. Maybe that's because we see more of her through Matt's perspective, so he kind of exaggerates the worst parts of her. But yeah, Elaine wasn't really doing it for me this book. She definitely seemed very hoity-toity, airy. I am the royal, I'm your royal leader, so you should do what I say or else kind of deal, and that's not cool. Nynaeve though, Nynaeve learned how to heal being severed from the true source, which is so interesting. The chapters that were written about it, where it mainly takes place, her discovery and how it affected all the Aes Sedai and how they saw her, was super interesting. I really enjoyed it, especially since it comes off the back of them having to pretend that a lot of the discoveries they've made through what's-her-face, hang on a second, I'll remember her name. For some reason I remember that she's posing as a woman called Marigan, but I don't remember what her actual name is. Well, either way, they've been learning about stuff that's been lost to time through her, and they've been having to pass off those discoveries as their own. And to see Nynaeve actually discover something by herself that they didn't even know could be done back in the Age of Heroes is really cool and really validating for her character. Similarly, Elaine learns how to make ter'angreal and stuff like that, so that's pretty cool too. But again, I'm not a big fan of Elaine right now. On a similar note, it was really fun to watch Egwene finally become Amelin, as was kind of foretold during her whatchamacallit, the test where she was raised to accept it and she had to go through the gates and saw a future which might have been where she was Amelin. So I think it's told to us that she pretty much forgets that entire experience, so it's pretty much, what's the word? Dramatic irony for us watching it all unfold, but it's also very rewarding for us as we pick up hints about what's going on, like Nynaeve semi-eavesdropping on the Aes Sedai as they're talking about the fact that they need a new leader, and, you know, could they really choose that person and stuff like that. And kind of putting 2 and 2 together, the reader's like, wait, are they talking about Egwene? Because that would be really kind of seemingly out of left field, but not really. And while she's definitely installed as kind of like a puppet Amelin, sorry, I always had a D to the end of that. I don't think there is a D. While she's kind of installed as a puppet Amelin, it's not really something that she's going to let happen, because our dear friend Egwene has been off studying under the Wise Ones, and they are very harsh, and they've toughened her up quite nicely. There's a lot less focus placed on Tel'aran'rhiod Rhiod this book, which I'm kind of pleased about, because there was a lot of focus placed on it in the last book, if I remember rightly, and it's kind of nice to have a bit of a change of pace. In this book, we really see a lot of Rand trying to be kind of an emperor as he travels the world, trying to keep these different kingdoms he's conquered in line, trying to do everything pretty much by himself in terms of making decisions with ruling. And one thread of his character that I do really like that kept being tugged on was the fact that he hears the voice of Lucifer Kingslayer in his head, and he actively gets into arguments with the guy, and sometimes Lucifer tries to like touch the true source, and there's definitely a whole lot more to be unpacked about that particular dynamic. So I'm excited to see where that leads. Like, as I've mentioned before, the book seems to be making it ambiguous as, is he part of Rand's madness, or is there something more in terms of like the kind of, you know how it all works with like souls going back to Tel Iran Riyadh and then being reborn and stuff, like something fucky might have gone on with Lucifer and you know his name. Given who he is, something fucky may have gone on there, and he may not have been reborn entirely properly, and I don't know what's going on there, but it's interesting to find out later down the line. I would be very surprised if Lucifer was just the madness inside Rand's head. I think he's probably going to be more than that. That being said, Rand certainly doesn't seem to think so that might actually kind of hasten his path down the road of madness himself. You know, very delicate boy that Rand Alfor. Out of the three love interests that Rand has, I honestly think Min is my favourite. She's like the most, you know, she's kind of like playful and flirty for sure, but she's maybe the most genuine and wholesome one out of all of them that have feelings for Rand. Avienda's too wrapped up in guilt and self-loathing based on the fact that she's supposed to be quote-unquote looking after him for Elaine, which will hopefully change now that, you know, those two have had some time to talk or whatever. And also, I've already said Elaine's not my favourite because she's trying to kind of like claim Rand for herself as like some sort of ownership in terms of having him be her warder. So and she's like, oh, I'll make him become my warder, and I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds a bit, you know, not very cool. Min just genuinely cares about him. I like Min a lot. I think she's the best. I've only known Min for 6 books, but if anything happened to her, I would kill everyone in this room and myself. Is that the quote? Is that how the... That's a reference to a show. I'm not actually being that dark. Now, when it comes to Matcham Coffin, I don't think there was actually too much interesting with him in this book, and I found his chapters to be some of the most waffling. Just him being annoyed at Aes Sedai, just him being annoyed at being, you know, led by Rand and then led by Elaine, and then, you know, trying to be this leader of the Band of the Red Hand and everything. There wasn't too much there to particularly interest me, to be perfectly honest. He just kind of walked around a lot in this book. He was at his most interesting when he was getting memories from earlier times and becoming a general figure in the previous book. Now he's just kind of there. And as for Perrin, I don't tend to love storylines about a husband and wife falling out and then being really stubborn with each other and then not talking to each other like they should be. It's just kind of frustrating to listen to, so Perrin's storyline didn't really do it for me either in this book. Like, it's so obvious that Fael thinks he's cheating on her with Berlain, and he doesn't do anything or seem to understand why she feels that way. He doesn't do anything to dissuade her. He could literally just say, no, I love you, I really don't like her, you know? Like, he decides to try and avoid Berlain by going out hunting every day. What do you think Fael thinks he's doing when he sneaks off to go hunting? It's so obvious and stupid, and I hate every second of it. But also, Fael, don't be so jealous, maybe. You're not helping either. Not a fan. Not a fan. As for the main plot points as we approach the end of the book, I'm not particularly enamoured by Elaine and Nynaeve's hunt for the bowl to Angreal to turn the weather back to normal. That's kind of boring, to be honest. But I was a fan of paranoid Rand fleeing the Aes Sedai that are trying to be on his side through, by the way, who think that he's not on their side because of a plot assumedly by the Forsaken to make it seem like that, you know, he sent frickin' what are they called, maidens to stab one of their Aes Sedai and stuff. And that never got cleared up, obviously, so that worked out well for the Forsaken, didn't it? Which predictably led to a series of events which had Rand fleeing the Aes Sedai and landing right in the path of the actual Aes Sedai who want to kidnap him and take him back and gentle him and control him and all of the horrible things, such as locking him away in a literal box. That was some messed up shit. I also really loved the payoff in the final battle of the book with the male Aes Sedai. I forget what he called them. It wasn't Aes Sedai in the end, but you know what I mean. Where he put them to use in attacking the Shido and fucking destroyed them. And it was like bloody and gory and frankly inhumane, and everyone was just kind of shocked and disgusted and horrified, and eventually Rand called them off. And it's like, Well, if that isn't an introduction for the male channelers of this series, I don't know what else is. Good lord, I just looked up the last video I did on this and it was 5 months ago. So, I didn't realise it took me nearly half a year to read through this book. I'll try to more actively listen through the books at a speedy rate. I did put my Audible on pause for 3 months, my membership, because I was getting so far ahead, but I'm off pause again now. I'm gonna try and, like, I know the next 3 books are apparently a slog, so I'm gonna try and, like, find new times to listen through them. So maybe, like, when I'm playing a racing game or something that doesn't really require too much attention from me, I can spend half of it, instead of listening to some random podcast, listening to some more of a Wheel of Time. I'll try not to make it 5 months between this one and Blurbal Reasoning for Book 7. Apologies, most of these videos tend to be 25 minutes long, but this one is only about 10 minutes long. Again, it took me so long to read this book, some of the details are lost on me, and I'm feeling pretty ill, so apologies for that. Again, let me know in the comments if there's anything I skipped over that you'd like me to reply about. I'm happy to do that, and hopefully I will meet you back here in a month or two for book number 7. Hopefully it's not too much of a slog. Thank you for listening, I'm gonna go take some cold medicine, and I'll see you in the next video.